So I'd like to again go over with everybody just again a 30-second synopsis of who you are and what you're trying to accomplish. Alex, if you don't mind starting with you.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, man, good to
Yes,
go.
sir.
Hey, what's up, Nolan? Hey, Zane. Nice to see you guys.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, my name's Alex Gaines. I'm from Wilmington, North Carolina. Um, I spent, the first, I guess, 10 years of my career in the military and started to figure out a little bit more about real estate, bought some short or some long-term rentals using the VA loan and still own those today. Have since got my real estate license and been looking around just at other places to invest my money. I currently work at JP Morgan and have been targeting now the commercial space, just given, it seems like there's less headache on that end with the different types of leases that people can get involved with. So yeah, just happy to meet you guys and appreciate the time.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. All right, Brett, tell us more about you, man.
Hey, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Brett Busheen. A little about myself. So I live in Austin, Texas. I've started a couple of businesses. I work in healthcare, mostly in the drug delivery industry. And so we develop products and technologies for pharmaceutical companies that are administering, that want to administer the medications using our device technologies. Looking to kind of diversify a little bit, getting more active in real estate. I've started kind of paying attention to what the various options and opportunities are out there. Have started to kind of really get more interested in some of the kind of the light industrial type of things, Nolan, that I know that you talk about a lot. Have also been very interested in some of the, real tax advantages, kind of the bonus depreciations, the offsetting of income, and have even prior to Nolan kind of learning about what you're doing, have started exploring some of the things around life insurance and so forth, whole life and opportunities for kind of the banking, kind of the opportunities there. And so just wanted to look to explore, learn a little bit more about this and yeah, see what's going on.
Awesome. Happy to have you. Thanks so much, Brett. Jeremy, what's going on, man? Thanks for making it today.
Hey, how's it going, Nolan? Yeah,
Good.
so my name is Jeremy. I'm from the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area of Minnesota. I started my investing journey back in 2021, late in 2021. I bought a duplex. My wife and I, we house hacked there for a few years. And then I joined another mentorship for real estate to learn creative financing, specifically subject twos and seller financed wraps, that kind of stuff. But it was all focused on residential real estate. And I didn't have any money at that time, so I went into wholesaling and did on market direct to agent outreach for wholesaling with some other people in that mentorship. Made a little bit of money, but it's a lot of work to do wholesaling. I also have a full-time W-2. I work for the Minnesota National Guard full-time. And so just looking to broaden my horizon as far as like where do I want to invest my money that I do have. And commercial real estate sounds way better than residential from what I've learned. I read the book that Nolan recommends, and I agree wholeheartedly that I think managing business owners versus residential tenants is going to be a game changer as far as real estate goes. And then Nolan and I are working on infinite banking. So just starting to put together that whole flywheel. I don't know if any of the other people on this call have kind of seen what you put together, Nolan, but just building out the whole thing together. So very excited to learn about commercial real estate.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. Yeah. All right, Elzla, what's going on, man? Elzla, is he on here? If I can hear you.
Hi,
Go.
everyone. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm Esla. I'm currently in Ottawa, Canada, and I have a background in healthcare. I used to be a medical doctor in Nigeria before I emigrated to Canada. Currently work in the healthcare space in Canada, but not as a doctor, but just doing something in the healthcare space. I saw Nolan's videos on TikTok, and then I was interested because of the tax advantage, the depreciations, and all that. And I would say I'm a newbie to real estate investing, so I'm really open to learn and understand everything about real estate. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Happy to have you here, man. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. McKinley, what's going on with you?
Sure, sure. Hey everyone. My name is McKinley Baird. So I'm in Birmingham, Alabama. I work really close with Nolan and Zane here, more on that IBC front, kind of like Brent and Jeremy kind of mentioned. Just helping our kind of passive investors and people who are out on the ground kind of getting their hands dirty, utilize the concept. Just kind of alternative place to park cash to go do what you were gonna do before. And it's been great, but in the meantime, I've learned a ton about commercial real estate in this whole process, and it's definitely something that I'm trying to get into as well. Um, I'm super, super passionate about it. Kind of, I'm young, but I'm learning the game, kind of like Jeremy talked about, like the flywheel of, warehousing our capital somewhere, taking something down, depreciation, and then just rinse and repeat. And so that's why I'm here. So I love it, but I'm seeing the writing on the wall, kind of figuring out the game. So thanks for having me.
Love it. Thank you. All right, David Baker, what's up, man? Thanks for making it today.
Hey, thanks, guys. Yeah, so David Baker, I'm in Central Indiana, and
What
yeah,
city,
so,
David?
so I'm in Indianapolis now. I grew up in Grant County.
I'm from Kokomo, just north of that.
Yeah, yep.
Great.
So
Wow. Okay, cool.
been over there. Got to go to White Castles. Got to go to Kokomo.
That's right.
So yeah, so found you on TikTok, which was really strange for me. I feel like I'm older than everyone on the Zoom, but I've been looking for someone. I've been consuming, just personal development things for a long time, and I've worked my entire career in the vendor space in managed commercial and managed residential. So I've been that contractor walking due diligence deals for roofing, siding, exteriors, paint, flooring, with all these other management companies, and I feel like I've been watching other people make money from the sidelines. So thought it really, really great when I came across your content to shift my focus from having thought I wanted to pursue something more residential just because I perceived it as more affordable, more manageable, to something that is, better tenant, better opportunities for depreciation. And I have 4 children. I would really love to, learn how to do this, to bring them into something like this so that they don't just go forward in their career as employees like we're all taught. So that's really why I'm here. I want to do something different. And I have a W-2. I get paid to drive around Indiana and Kentucky and look at properties already in another field. So I, would be able to pair that pretty well with finding these deals.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thanks to you for being here, David. All right, last, Francisco, what's going on, man?
Can you guys hear me?
We can. Hello.
Can you guys see me?
We can. Thank you.
Hey, how are we doing, everybody? I like the roll call. Wasn't expecting a roll call, but what do we say is a little bit less here. Hello, my name is Francisco Mendez. I'm up in New York, upstate New York. I work in the finance sector, private equity and venture capital. So I'm not as much hands-on on the actual work that goes into acquiring properties and stuff like that. So I'm open to learn as I.
Uh-oh, he might be muted. Maybe that's just me.
Francisco, I can't hear you.
You got muted, brother.
And work is for that, but I've never really had hands-on experience on the real estate side on acquiring that. So I'm open to taking some of my money that I have invested with my company and otherwise, and trying to see if I could grow my own personal portfolio versus what it is. The difference between a commercial real estate and what my company does and what we've been doing, it's that we're mostly focused on hotels and project development and ground up development. So what Nolan's bringing up here, it's more of a shift in strategy, but it's something that I'm very attuned with. So I'm happy to learn and see what it takes.
Very great. Awesome. Thank you, Francisco. Okay, everyone. Thank you guys for.
I hope you guys heard that, because I'm not hearing you guys right now.
Oh, I hope that everybody else can hear me. I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I can hear
We're
you.
good.
All right,
I think
Francisco. I think
Francisco's going in and out a little.
He might be
no.
on the outside looking in.
Thank you.
Here's what I like to do, guys. Thanks for being a little open like that. I'm not going to, again, take up a ton of y'all's time this afternoon, but I do think that the first 18 steps, and again, I'll share our blueprint here so everyone can see it. Let me move my screen over here. I have people over there. These are, I hope everybody has at least downloaded this already, right? All 50 steps of this. And it's a lot better with your PDF if you have it versus like a screenshot, because you can click these links and it will take you to like the spreadsheet. It'll take you to, the actual emails and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, candidly, you can just copy and paste it if you wanted to recreate it yourself. But
also,
go ahead, Zane. Yeah.
sorry, I was going to say, if you don't have this already, just let me know, and then I'll send it to you after the call.
Yeah. So I kind of developed this. Zane and I spent a lot of time over the last, 12 months kind of developing this. He was like, hey, look, when people in our collective are looking for deals, how can we help them like get across the finish line? What's like the roadmap? So we kind of came up with this acquisition blueprint, and we spent at one point like an entire week just breaking down every single step on what it looks like to actually get a building from from getting it under contract, or like literally getting a deal from your broker. Hey, buddy, I'm looking something in the mirror. What does it look like? To all the way down to, literally receiving a tax return in K-1 from your accountant and circulating it to your limited partners if you have those on your entity. But today I want to just go over the first 18 steps. And again, it won't take crazy long, but I think it's important to know. I always like to think about building a skyscraper by going down. You got to have a good foundation before you start to go up. And it's like I say all the time, I like to focus on assembling my team. A lot of people on the Bigger Pockets forums, you probably have heard me say it before. They're trying to find the deal. Money will find you. That whole song and dance. The problem is that the best deals are gone. Everything else is just, you got a bunch of bones and a bunch of rats out on LoopNet and everything like that. So I focus on really focusing on my broker relationships, my banker. These are your two main cats that you want to really focus on. And of course, the attorney and the account, I have those. If you need a guy, I have no problem introducing you to those people. So let's just get into this. So let's assume that you guys have done the groundwork, where you guys have gone to the meetups, you have met with your brokers, you've kind of assembled your team already, right? That's the groundwork that's pretty much required in order to become a real estate investor. A lot of people focus on transacting, and I would recommend out of the gate, that is the least important thing when it comes to real estate. I focus on the relationship, because you're not just trying to do a one-off deal. I mean, I go to Christmas dinners. I mean, I'm about to go have a couple of beers with one of my bankers in like an hour from now, talking about a deal we're transacting next week. And then another deal that's one of our members we're working on down in New Iberia, Louisiana, that we're hoping to be under contract next week. So we're just discussing this. But that's just a more relationship kind of thing. So let's assume that everybody has assembled their team. Is that fair with everyone? Are we all good with that? Okay. So we're going to receive this lead from our broker, and the most important physical attributes are these four metrics. You guys have heard me say it before: 10 to 40,000 square feet, 16 plus foot ceiling heights, multiple roll-up doors, less than a mile off the highway. Now, I would ask you guys, because I want to be interactive here, does anybody know why I came up with these four physical attributes? Does anybody have an idea? I'm opening it up. I don't mind answering.
I'm assuming there's some market intel and data that you gathered around those attributes that make those kind of, maybe the ideal characteristics of things that are attractive to certain business owners. Maybe something larger, maybe a little bit too big leads to fewer potential, candidates versus too small, maybe less useful. Don't know, but that would be my guess.
Yeah, I would say these are the types of physical locations that keep long-term tenants. So, it makes sure that your headache goes down, and these are desirable locations, especially if it's off the highway with the ability to, commercialize an advertisement right off the highway. These are long-term tenants, stuff that, they're mostly looked for.
1,000%. Brent and Francisco just nailed it. Basically, I did some homework and I said, what types of businesses, anywhere from 3 million of gross revenue to 30 million of gross revenue, what are these guys owner using? And I discovered there's 1.2 million businesses that are in this little box. There's a lot more businesses that have less than 3 million of gross, and there's a lot less businesses that have more than that kind of revenue. But I was like, what's the largest kind of just middle of the fairway businesses in the United States? What are they owner using, and what are they leasing? And the reason why I love that type of valuation or that gross revenue is because they're not a mom and popper, and they're not some type of conglomerate where they're publicly traded, or I got to deal with some, out-of-state attorney. I don't want to work with those people. I like working with the business owner that's making $8 million in gross, and he's netting out $900,000 after his cost of goods. To me, that's the perfect tenant, because he understands as a business owner the difference between his variable cost and his fixed cost. Obviously, your variables are your commissions and the price of your cost of goods and all that kind of stuff. The fixed costs are your salaries and your rent. And I always know that I'm never going to have an ACH kick back to me due to insufficient funds because they have that level of revenue. So like I said, this is not the one fits size all for everybody, but to me, I will not buy something unless it fits all into these metrics, because on top of that, when you take one of these metrics away, it essentially reduces that tenancy pool from about 1.2 to down to 600. So you're basically cutting your tenant pool in half, which of course increases the risk and makes the deal less bankable, if that's fair to say. I'm trying to find a way to give my bank what he wants so I can get what I want, which is his money, right? I think we're all on the same page there. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk that building with my broker. I'm going to take photos. I'm going to meet the owner. Again, when you have that relationship with your broker and he knows, because you hear these people out there that say, oh, the broker is very personal. He doesn't want you to meet his client and things like that. Well, sounds like a very inexperienced broker and somebody that is afraid that if you as the buyer doesn't speak to them, it's going to screw up their commission and cut them out. That's not the case at all. My brokers understand that when I'm able to speak, they'll send me the guy's cell phone because they know that I'm able to, again, we'll get down to this, but enhance their ability to, because I'm not so much a buyer, I'm a seller consultant, right? Where you might have heard that one before. We're trying to help the seller save more money in capital gains tax by leaving money in the deal, and they finance the down payment. So you're able to buy these buildings with essentially no money. So you do this kind of thing. You take some photos. I have a due diligence checklist. I don't think I have it pulled up. I can share this with you guys. But I've got, as I'm walking the building, I have a due diligence checklist. I mean, I'll just pull this up with you guys. I was going to do like a little case study. It's actually on the pro forma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You had one right over there.
Here it is. Okay.
Okay, there you go.
There it is. Sorry, guys. Should have been more prepared. So it's on this due diligence. This is like our pro forma that all of our investors and our membership get. It's just kind of the best way to underwrite a deal. And I'll underwrite a deal with you guys shortly, but it's got all these different metrics. And but this due diligence, I kind of, when a member of our group finds a deal, I require them to print this document out and go over all and carry this with them as they're in. When they're on in this part here, when they're walking this building with your broker, taking photos and everything, and they're going to ask all of these, they're going to have to fill out all of this information, the purchase information, the debt information, if you can find all of the existing debt, which you should. If you've done a title search, you can understand where all this stuff is. Well, especially on the previous debt when you're doing seller financing. But if there's existing debt, the current lien holder, that's a big piece because you're going to get an opportunity to potentially continue to have debt with that existing bank so you can create a new relationship with your lender. Getting all this information on the debt, the lease information, the tenant information, who they are, how long they've been there, what's the rent as percentage of revenue, the location of the property, the rent. So basically all this stuff is filled out as you're walking the site, because if you can have more information, you are way more likely that gives you two things. It gives you an ability to negotiate. And most importantly, if and when that time comes, you're able to present that to your lender, and it's just going to allow you to have more negotiation and leverage. Okay. Before I get going, does anybody have a question about those kind of steps out of the gate? Okay. So then number 4, we're going to discover the seller's true motivation: death, divorce, dissolution, disaster, something's going on. We don't want to go and work with I don't want to work with somebody that's like, hey, I'm drinking Mai Tais at the beach. Just send me an offer if you want. There's not a whole lot of urgency or motivation. What my broker told me once, he said, if you can have the trifecta of a piece of property, you got a really good deal. You've got motivation, you've got a timeline, and you got something wrong with the property. 2 of those 3 things are pretty good, but if you can get all 3, then you got a home run deal. So somebody that's just got divorced, they got to move to San Francisco and the roof is leaking, you've got a absolute slam dunk. So that doesn't happen every day of the week, but if you've got a good broker that understands, what types of properties you're looking for, which you've given them metrics, then you're way more likely to get that deal in your pipeline when that opportunity presents itself. Okay. So as we're underwriting the deal, we underwrite the deal, we reverse engineer ourselves into the financial metrics must have. So if I go back to our due diligence checklist, here's kind of the financials that are, again, required. Otherwise, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just won't partner with somebody unless they fit into our criteria, because I say this from experience. I've bought buildings in the past that didn't fit into this, and they end up becoming more of a headache and candidly just annoying. I got to deal with tenants that in a gross lease, or somebody that is somebody I don't want to deal with, like maybe not so much a not business owner, but the debt is a little bit too tight compared to what I bought it for. So those financials are a cap rate of 10+%, a debt service coverage ratio of 1.4. The purchase price needs to fit within 1 to 5 million. And the reason why this is important is because anything less than $1 million, you start to have to dance with more people. Anything 5 million and above, you start to have to dance with groups and funds. So 1 to 5 million, of course, there's competition, but in my experience is there's just not as much competition. And then a
Do
global.
you find,
Yeah,
if
go
I could just
ahead.
ask a quick question about that, I mean, do you
Sure.
find, I mean, as you start to do more and more deals kind of within that level, I mean, does that not create opportunities for you to kind of punch up and look at bigger deals? Like if you're, or do you still feel like independent if you've got 5, 10, 20 properties that you're always going to perpetually look in that range and not really start to look north, maybe 10 million or 15, just because now you've got more capital or opportunity to leverage, other kinds of debt, to go after bigger deals?
I mean, that's a great question. I'll be candid. I haven't gotten to the point where I'm looking at, I just haven't looked at the bigger deals like that, because what I've discovered is usually that introduces a non-recourse style of debt, which triggers a couple of different underlining and underwriting metrics that I've got relationships with my lenders that I really like. And when you get to that kind of upper echelon of like larger deals like that, it triggers a different underwriting. And not saying it's right or wrong. I've just tried to focus at something, because like I said, anytime I get out of these metrics, I tend to screw myself somehow. And I
Got
just
it.
focused on this, and it's just worked. And that's kind of been a blessing from another investor that's not in town, but he's like, if you get kind of stick with these kind of things, like your competition is very little. It's very tiny, because most people don't know how to underwrite a commercial real estate deal anyway. So you being able to underwrite it with these financials and make strategic offers, um, you have a much more likely and higher aptitude to close, if that answers your question.
Yep. Well, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, of course. And then this global debt service coverage ratio is just describing the first position debt, and then when the seller leaves money in the deal, the second position interest rate or the interest payment to the seller as well. And then of course the seller leaving money in the deal. If you can find a building that's got all of these attributes, you hold on to that thing for dear life, never sell it. Put it in your irrevocable trust and never let it roll. That kind of thing. Okay. So again, draft up an LOI with financial must-have metrics. Of course, it's the same thing. You're drafting this. You can do it yourself. I mean, I like to have my broker do it. That's what I'm paying. Well, that's what the seller would be paying them for. But I give them the terms and I make sure that we stick with it. And on top of that, too, I would go a step further and not. Never. I had advice once, like, don't ever just sign something without reviewing it and reading it yourself. You can pay an attorney to get their eyes on everything, but I've discovered in my own life is I really, really prefer myself to understand the vocabulary, understand what I'm responsible for, what the seller is responsible for. So make sure that when you are submitting things, that you individually are reading. And I mean, candidly too, if you don't understand something, Google it, like Chat GPT it, find a way to really comprehend what it is that you are signing up for, essentially.
Yeah, I got a quick question just because I
Yeah,
don't want
Alex.
you to get ahead. The two pieces. So when you're looking at a deal, do you consider how old the building is? And then the second question was, why do you need the roll-up doors?
I mean, yeah, you consider the I would say this, there's two answers on the age of the building. Of course, the older the building, number one, the cost of insurance is going to be more expensive. But of course, if it's a triple net lease, you're passing that cost on to the tenant. But also, too, older real estate just tends to dilapidate quicker. And if the roof is older, things just tend to break faster and quicker. And that's why on like the due diligence checklist, I go down here and like deferred maintenance. Like a lot of this information is important, and that gives you more negotiation power when you go to close. Like if you're under contract at 2 million and you find out that maybe there's a sprinkler system that is existing and it's dated, or it's it's not up to code, or there's not an HVAC warranty, or if the zoning that's existing and you get a new tenant, you got to rezone it. Like what's the age of the roof, right? All these types of things that go in when you're underwriting it that maybe you don't really think about. Again, the tenant is paying those expenses. But on top of that, Alex, I would say if you go to bat for your tenant, meaning, hey, man, I just saved you $400 a year on insurance, which is nothing big, right? You're not going to, the cost of insurance is just what it is. They're going to pay it. But if you can say, hey, man, that last year it was $3,000. This year it's $2,800. I went to bat, try to save you a couple of dollars. If that lease is up for renewal or they can let it expire, I bet you they're more likely than not going to want to stick around with you. I'm kind of into the quid pro quo game kind of thing. Like, you scratch mine, I'll scratch yours kind of thing. In my experience, my tenants want to renew before their lease is even close to being up. I've got a tenant that's got 5 years left, and I just redid a piece of the roof on their building, and they asked to extend for another 5 years. Is replacing a part of a roof fun? No, but I use debt for it. But that's neither here nor there. And the roll-up doors answer, I would say, when I think of what business owners, blue collar, whether it's glass supply, whether it's fabrication, it's distribution, whatever it is, they tend to have vehicles or equipment that need to be stowed, inventory that needs to be going somewhere, and most times like forklifts and things. And so I always like having at least a 12-foot roll-up door, because that allows, I have one tenant that's in glass supply, and he's got a 12-foot roll-up door in his building. And I mean, maybe you guys have seen, as you're driving from A to B, you see like one of those trucks that has like the glass like up on the side, and there's like suction cups to them. Those trucks are like 11 feet when off the ground. So they need like 12 feet. Otherwise, they can't fit their glass inside of their building. So I kind of just came up with this idea that, hey, again, it was just based on what everybody was renting at the time. And that's kind of how I came up with it. I wouldn't say that it's required, but one roll-up door doesn't seem to get the job done when you could have 2 or 5 or 10. I mean, more than enough, I would say. Does that answer your question, Alex?
Yeah, I appreciate it. I just, like I said, no experience here, so just trying to understand how you think about things.
Yeah, I just look at it and think, if I can give my tenant more options, they're more likely to want to stick around, and and it gives them more utility, and it gives them more agility when they're running their business. They don't have to have one, 18-wheeler tractor trailer pull in, and then they might have 3 guys backing up to try and deliver inventory. If I can have 3 guys rolling, I got one tenant, I can show you the building. But I've got one tenant that has 10 roll-up doors on this building, and they come in the middle of the night, their last mile pharmaceutical distribution. They come in the middle of the night and drop all, I mean, they come from Atlanta, we're in Birmingham, come from Atlanta, they drop off all their product in this building. It sits in there for like 45 minutes. There's like 6 tractor trailers that roll in, they drop off all the product, and then they just leave at their leisure. And then the next guys come in, like the last mile, like vans come in, and then they take them over to Rite Aid and Walmart and like the local pharmacies. So if it was, imagine like having only 1 or 2 roll-up doors when you had 6 tractor trailers coming in, it would just kind of cause like a disturbance of like, the logistics, I guess. If that makes sense.
Yeah, like a bottleneck.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah. So then, of course, after that, you draft the LOI. Let's say you got it with the metrics. That makes sense. You draft it with the LOI with these terms of due diligence for 45 days. And after those due diligence are up, you close 30 days. Earnest money, 1% of purchase. So if it's $1 million purchase, $10,000 of earnest money. We got a guy in our group that actually does earnest money financing, which sounds kind of funny, but Not everybody, especially if it's a $3 million deal, some people don't want to put up 30 grand of their own money. Now that earnest money doesn't go hard, of course, but still 30 grand that's going and getting tied up somewhere. So what we'll do is we'll just essentially, again, tie the deal up for 45 days. This allows you to go and, again, walk the site, take your pictures, really dial into the due diligence, get an inspection, go. And what I like to do is I like to kind of retrade it after I'm under, this is a little further down, but yeah, we're submitting this. We're drafting an LOI. Then our broker is going to submit that LOI on the deal. Then again, you probably are going to negotiate between 8 and 9 a little bit, go back and forth. And then he agrees to your letter of intent. Then you're going to email your insurance agent with all the property information. So, and again, this is just kind of a part of this. You guys, I guess, have access to this. It's on the blueprint. But this is the way that I like to give as much information to my team as I possibly can. So that way I'm not having to go back and forth and hey, I need this, I need that. So I asked my insurance guy once, I said, give me everything that you need. Give me all the deeds that you need in order to get a letter of intent from your insurance company that you'll insure my property. So this is kind of the information I need. So we're setting to close on this date. I need to insure this property for X amount. Here's all the information on the deal that you can anticipate. Here's the agreement and the lease for your review. Let me know if you need any, further information or have further questions, that kind of thing. And you can just kind of copy and paste that and then just change the name here, change the dates, that kind of thing. And it's very simple and it's straight to the point. There's no fluff, and your agent will really, really appreciate that because you're getting him the information that he needs to have velocity in, his business, which means he's going to end up wanting to do more business with you. So after you send that email, if you haven't already, you're interviewing a real estate attorney, requesting attorney recommendations from your broker. Most of these guys all run in the same circle. If a broker's done a deal, he's probably been to a title company. He's probably been to a real estate attorney. He's like, they all kind of run in the same circle. So you want to get a referral from somebody versus just kind of going through the yellow pages or just like, shooting shots out there and hoping something sticks, Again, interview commercial bankers, request that recommendation from your broker. Again, it's a little monotonous to say because we should have already kind of had these people in our pocket. But end of the day too, you don't always just go with one banker. I really recommend having 3, sometimes even 4 bankers that are all kind of salivating over your deals, because then they will pounce and they'll respond to you and they're ready to rock and roll when that opportunity presents itself, and they'll give you their highest and best. So that's what I've discovered in my experience, at least. So I would say this is an important piece right here too. So discover your banker's lending appetite. And what I like to do, guys, too, is when I go and sit down with my banker after I get recommended from my broker, I'll buy him coffee, or he'll end up buying me lunch or coffee or whatever. If I'm sitting there for 45 minutes, I'll spend probably, not exaggerating, probably 40 minutes never mentioning my real estate deal, never talking about myself. I only want to get to know him as a person. Remember, I'm trying to build a relationship. Transacting will come down the road. I focus only on the relationship. Again, where did you grow up? Why are you in this town? Did you move here? Why did you stay here? What's your golf handicap? What do your kids' sports play? Like all that kind of stuff that's important to them as a person. And then as time goes on, the last 5 minutes, you'll get the chance to ask them about their banking appetite, their lending, what's their loan to value? What are they interested in as of right now? Sometimes their debt sectors get changed where they're chasing storage, then they're chasing office, then they're chasing industrial, then they're chasing residential. So their appetite changes as kind of the seasons change. So getting to know them and what they're looking for will give you an upper hand because I'll give you an example. I run with basically 3 banks. One of them gives me the best terms like every single time, but he doesn't really like it when I request to leave money in the deal. Like he doesn't like it when the seller finances the down payment and I'm basically in it for no money. He doesn't like that. But when I have a partner, when we did a deal a couple of months ago where the seller was a trust and it didn't make like mathematical sense for them to leave money in the deal. He gave me like insane terms, 25-year AM, interest only for 24 months, prime plus like 25 basis points. It was strong. My other two bankers are more on the other side where they're like, look, we don't really care so much if there's a second position. We got to do a little bit more on the terms of the debt, but we're much more willing to be creative. So once you discover each individual banker's appetite, and as these deals flow in from your banker, you're going to have a much more understanding of like, does this deal fit into this guy, that guy, or this guy's banking or lending appetite? And it's going to allow you to be able to be more strategic when you're purchasing property. Does anybody have a question or thought about that?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Just trying to understand kind of, the different banking opportunities for this kind of asset, right? If you think about like traditional kind of residential real estate, 30-year mortgage, whether or not you have, fixed or arms and so forth. And just wondering how that's different for this type of asset and the way the banker thinks about it. And also whether or not things like first lien equity lines are available for this type of asset as well, versus maybe more traditional compounded mortgage, if you can get into kind of simple interest products and, allow you to kind of pay down some of the equity a little bit faster, if those types of things are available or not.
You might be thinking a little bit more high level than the way that I do it. So
Okay.
You might be way more sophisticated than I am. I kind of stick to, when I'm looking at term sheets, I basically get something, hey, give me 25-year amortization, give me prime plus some change, give me 12 months of interest only so I can, if it's vacant, I can lease it up. If it's, if I got a lease that's shorter, I can go renew the lease. I don't really get into, I just make sure the debt ratio, I like to buy them at like 165, 175. So that's kind of my kind of sweet spot where it's not crazy risky, where the debt ratio is 4, but it's also not really tight where it's like 1-1. Most of my lenders will lend money based on their debt ratio and because we've got a relationship. So
Okay.
I don't really think about paying down principal. I don't really focus on like how quickly can I pay this thing off. Candidly, I like to be in debt at all times. That's my personal prerogative, as much as I can personally borrow at any given point. But my focus at the end of the day really is the relationship with the bank, understanding their lending appetite, and seeing if I can kind of come with some congruence with the deal that I have and what they're looking for. I don't know if that answers your question, Brent, but like that's the way that I've tried to live by it, if that makes sense.
Yep. No, that makes sense. And by the way, I'm not sophisticated at all. You're far more
Well, we might be on the same
sophisticated than
page, but
myself.
I wish I had
my
that.
questions were.
Yeah.
I've just learned a little bit about, the opportunities with some new products that are getting a little bit more attractive, with like a first lien position on an equity line that's more of on a kind of a simple interest basis rather than compounded on a traditional mortgage. And the benefit of that, you may have the same cash flow, like it's not changing in terms of the economics, but it paying down the principal, whether or not the ability to transact through an equity line rather than a mortgage, and how you can have money going both ways. So now paying down that principal, now you've got equity that you can immediately draw against rather than going through refinancing, and whether or not those types of things are available to these assets. I know it's something I'm looking into for my primary residence and a couple other, pieces of real estate that we have. But I've only just started exploring it. So that's why I asked the question.
No.
Because I think it could give you access to capital for the next deal through, an equity line on your current asset that, I don't know, there seemed to be some opportunity there.
I'd be curious to hear about that. I mean, we go into these deals 99% of the time with 100% debt, meaning the seller,
right.
Well, I'm borrowing 75% and the seller's leaving 25% in it. So most of the time, you buy it to where you can double the value in 12 months. That's always the goal. So I would say the game would be is at that point, when you double it from $1 million to $2 million, you refinance all the debt, pay the seller
and do a cash out
mortgage, and you got $1 million of equity that maybe that line would be the second position compared to the first, but
right. Yeah, you could do it that way too, for sure.
That kind of thing.
Makes sense.
Okay. So we did that, retain an attorney for $5,000. It's usually not that expensive. And sometimes too, if you have a closing attorney that will, I got it, like my real estate attorney, on a transaction like this, you won't even have to retain him if you do the closing at his office. That's what I've discovered. You can even usually wrap like the operating agreement and the LLC creation into the debt. That's what again, not every guy does that, and it's not really that expensive. It's probably like $1,000. And if you just negotiate that with your attorney, say, hey, look, we're going to close this deal at your office, if we close at your office, throw me a bone and just negotiate with them and say, hey, do this, and then create my entity and operating agreement and throw that into the cost, and sometimes they do it, sometimes they won't, but that's what I've discovered. It's usually never 5,000. But if you do more than one deal, then, that cost is just eventually going to go up, but you're buying more real estate. So your broker emails the purchase agreement for your attorney to review. I think that's important. Like, you want to read through that purchase agreement. You want to read through the lease when you receive that. But end of the day, I really recommend an attorney reviewing it, because there's legalese in there that sometimes me as just a regular Joe still wouldn't even understand. And so if you can get your attorney to review it and he can go to bat for you with certain, information or, just language in there, I think it's valuable. So he reviews the purchase agreement, he approves the purchase agreement, and then you submit to the seller to sign. And then again, the purchase agreement is signed and you're under contract. So that's kind of the way that, and again, the rest of this kind of stuff, you're under contract. This is kind of where it gets really, really fun, where you start negotiating with the seller and you go back to the bank. And if you notice too, this really only has a couple of, like, just based on the color coding, it's only a couple people. It gets more invasive when you've got like multiple people involved and you're kind of playing puppeteer on it as things kind of go on. But I really, really enjoy this. And it's then you kind of get down to the next one where you send your global email to everybody. You include everybody on this email, and it just gets really fun as kind of time goes on. But again, the scope of today was focusing on just those first 18 steps to getting a building from receiving it in your inbox to being under contract and submitting earnest money and getting all the way, hopefully from there to the finish line. Because this is kind of the first phase. If you can get from 1 to 18, not exaggerating, you're probably 80% of the way there. You only 20%. I mean, Zane and I, we've got multiple guys in our group that have done deals, and you're just like, Zane, you got an idea? Like, I would say, I mean, you get to step 18 going to 19 and 20. You're getting close. Like, you're a lot closer than number 6 looking at deals,
Oh yeah. A lot of people will try to focus on like what needs to happen after contract,
That's right.
after you get the deal under contract, and after you go into the closing period and the debt and the financing and everything. But I'm telling you, and no one's telling you, if you can knock it down all these steps, then you don't have to worry about how you're going to do it after that. And especially if you guys decide to join the collective, I know I've talked to a lot of you guys, you have support on your team who can help you go off and do these things much more effortlessly. So things like, for example, if we started on step number 1, receive deal from your broker, you got to go build a relationship with the broker. We have very actionable items that allow you to actually follow along step by step, weekly support to do that. Also, when it comes to things like submitting the LOI on a deal and drawing up the LOI, we have all these different templates and emails that you can use to plug in the details of your deal, outline the offer, all these different creative types of offers that you can go and actually use on your own when you're submitting offers on deals. So anyways, yeah, hopefully that added on to your point, Nolan.
It again, let me be clear though too, like, it's not like this walk in the park. It's not like, oh, let me just like sign up and kind of float, because it's not like that. And these deals don't just like come by just every other day. You got to work at it. But what I've discovered in my experience is when you put the work in and you build the relationships with the bankers and the brokers, the accountant, the attorney, what ends up happening is out of the gate, like anything else, it takes a whole lot of effort to get this flywheel going, right? To really work hard to get the thing spinning. But once it starts moving, all you got to do is just maintain it at that point. It's like getting an airplane off the ground. Like it takes a lot of fuel to get up in the air, but once you're coasting, it gets more efficient the longer that you're flying. So that's been my experience. Like I said, we've got multiple deals, and on top of that too, I think what's been cool is some of the members in our group are, we've got guys that are more focused on just investing. Other guys are focused on just they want to sponsor deals. And so it's cool when guys get on our school and they're like, hey, I've got this really cool project. I got this deal. We show you how to outline it. We've got like proposal for financing templates. It's kind of morphed. Like I would say, from where we were even a year ago to where it is now, it's turned into more of an opportunity club, meaning, whether you're in the sponsorship side or you're on the limited partner side, you're like, hey, I want to be passive. I'm already making $15 million a month doing whatever I'm doing. I just want to invest and get depreciation. Well, then you can use all the other members that are wanting to sponsor deals and get into deals. And we can basically kind of play matchmaker, eHarmony a little bit. So that's been our kind of our experience, guys. That's kind of our opportunity and our offer for people. And look, you can do this yourself. It's not that difficult to do if you stick with it, and it's almost like you're at an 0-2 count trying to battle at the plate just to get on base. I think our collective, the acquisition blueprint, the email templates, the support that we give you will allow you to have kind of a stand-up double. You'll be in scoring position, but it's up to you to decide like kind of what action you're wanting to take. So does anybody kind of have any ending questions? And then we can have Zane kind of close everything out on what it looks like, but I want to make sure I answer everyone's questions before you get out. Cool.
Okay, great.
All right, Zane, go ahead. If you want to close us out, man, that'd be great.
No, yeah, sure. I mean, I've talked to a lot of you guys. Good to see you all again. Hey, you guys have my personal phone number. If you want to reach out, ask any other questions, if you have any offline, then we could totally do that too. But in the meantime, I'll talk to you guys very soon.
Yeah. And once those opportunities come up, holler at us, because we, like I said, I'm closing on a deal with a partner next week. And so it's, when the right deal pops up, we will not hesitate to take action immediately. So
I got one question, if that's all right.
Yeah, Alex.
Yeah. So Nolan, just curious, when did the light bulb kind of go off for you, and what did that first opportunity look like? And then you kind of like got it and you were like, yeah, I think I want to spend my time and money here versus, residential.
In commercial. Yeah. So, well, first I had all those houses up in Indiana, and then unfortunately I discovered that my property manager was stealing from me. So that really jaded me quickly. So then I read the commercial real estate book by Dolph DeRoos that I recommend everybody read. Read that, changed my perspective, made sure I knew I was in real estate, but I just needed to focus on commercial. Didn't know the metrics, didn't know the ratios. I had fear because my mentor at the time was telling me only buy houses. But I knew that I wanted to achieve more. Candidly, my guy had like 18 houses and they were all paid off, and that kind of thing. So I didn't really know. I mean, I didn't know what I was wanting to do at the time. I just knew I wanted to do something bigger than what I was at. So I started to tell everybody and their brother, hey, I want to buy commercial real estate. I didn't even know what it looked like at the time. I think I wanted to do industrial. One guy, a wholesaler, approaches me and says, hey, I've got this deal in Tarrant, Alabama. It's northeast Birmingham. And if you guys make it to our CRE Summit this fall, which is our live event, you'll be able to walk and see these buildings and everything, and walk inside of them, meet the tenant, like that kind of thing. It's a really great event, you guys. It's been great the last couple of years. But basically, this guy presented it. I bought it for $1.35 million. I did not have the relationships. I did not have the banking relationships. I had my banker from Indiana drive down and walk the building. He's like, this might be for us. It's kind of out of our footprint. Well, what I did is the broker, or the wholesaler that was on the other side, the broker was like, the bank that's on this right now might want to keep the debt. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, you're going to borrow more money to buy this. Why not just see if the bank that's holding the note existing would like to continue to receive cash flow? I was like, that's not a bad idea. So I called up Renaissance Bank in Birmingham, and I got kind of just like dispatched to, my now like one of my really good friends and loan officer. He's Patrick. And he's like, yeah, we're familiar with that asset. We love the tenant. They've been there for like 18 years. Be more than happy to lend you money on that. So then it was the purchase price was $1.35 million. I did not know how I was going to come up with a $350,000 down payment. I borrowed $1 million from Renaissance Bank. And what the seller said to me at the time was like, hey, Nolan, again, because I wanted to get to know the seller because I didn't know what I was doing still. I had no clue. I was just kind of flying by the seat of my pants. And I said, he said to me, he goes, would you be opposed if I left the 300? That's how I came up with this vocabulary. Honestly, this one first guy, he's like, would you be opposed to me leaving $350,000 in this deal? And I was like, I don't know. His name was Steven. I bet you I could call him right now. He'd pick up. He's a Chinese guy. He's like, hey, Nolan, when are you going to buy my next building? You know, he's really funny. And he's got a couple more than what I'm trying to take down, but he's a good negotiator. Well, he goes, would you be opposed if I left $350,000 in this deal as your down payment? And I was like, Steven, let me go consult with my guy first because I don't know. I mean, maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't. So I called my accountant and I was like, am I missing something here? This feels a little sketchy. Like I just felt sketched out. And he's like, no. It's just a tax play. He's wanting to separate his capital gains into 2 separate tax years because of X, Y, and Z. He might have other things going on in his life that would change his situation, right? Well, basically, I was like, okay, so if he leaves money in the deal, you're telling me that I can basically buy this building with no money down. And I just did the math, and it's $1 million of first position, $350,000 of second position. And so I closed that deal. I got a check at closing for like $7,800 in the form of the proration of taxes that were due at the end of the year. And so that was my first commercial deal. And then I was like, wow, so this is a real thing. So these are how these guys are buying these buildings, you know? And that's when I was like, wait a minute. I was like, hang on. So this is how they do it. And so then I went and bought the next one. Then I went and bought the next one. Then one guy didn't want to do it because his wife was, you know, crazy and she just wanted to go down and leave town. So then I had a partner that came on and we split the equity 50-50 and I offered him 100% of the cash flow until his principal was repaid, but we split the equity. So I got 50% of the depreciation. And that's kind of how the whole thing kind of came together. Like this is just from experience. Like I'm not like an expert. I've just discovered if I can buy buildings with no money, I get the full depreciation. If the seller does not want to leave money in the deal, I can raise capital from an investor, give them 100% of the cash flow, which is not, it's important. It's got to be bankable, but I get the depreciation on the building and then I can offset my other income otherwise. And so that's kind of been my game. And so when these buildings come into play, we just make these offers and then we sit down with the seller. Like I said, I've got introduced to them and I get to know them the same way I would say earlier, getting to know the banker. And I'm like, guys, let me show you how to save money in taxes. Like my job here is not to purchase your property, but to help consult with you to not pay one dime of tax. And then they go back to their CPA and I share this one pager, like the whole thing. And then they come back and say, are you opposed or against me like leaving more money in the deal? And then it's this oxytocin release. And then now we're partners on the thing. And anything that I present to them usually ends up being a yes. So that's kind of what I've discovered has been working. And now I've just got like the oozing confidence to just make offers. And just if they don't want to do it, well, then I say, whatever, no problem. Like come back to me in 6 months when your building's still vacant or if it's still not sold yet, you know, that kind of thing. You know, that's
Can I ask a question about the depreciation a little bit? So a question, like how aggressive are you in terms of acquiring assets? Because I imagine, you know, if you're looking at the depreciation and the offsetting of the income, if you're buying too many properties in a given year, you might be leaving something on the table, right? Because you have more depreciation and maybe less income to offset. Like, or are you buying at a rate to kind of net out and match whatever income is being generated, which is going up over time, each asset that you purchase, and then your acquisition strategy is more focused to kind of match the depreciation with the income, so that you're netting out appropriately and paying no taxes at the end of the year, or how are you thinking about that?
But the depreciation carries forward. Yeah.
So you could take it in following years.
Make
you
$1
don't
million.
have to take it in that.
That's right. You make $1 million, you lose $2 million. The next year, you got $1 million of depreciation. It just carries
Right.
forward to oblivion. So you never lose it.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just the more buildings that you buy now, I mean, they're stepping that cost segregation depreciation down in basis right now, which is beyond the scope of this call. But
Yeah.
I look at it and am very bullish as interest rates are still kind of fluttering a little bit, and people are getting a little tricky right now. So I'm just going to keep on buying.
You're just gonna keep on buying. Yeah.
I was never going to stop buying. Sell them when you can get them if you need to, but most of the time it's just buying. That kind of thing. So, well, guys, I appreciate
Great,
everybody
thanks.
being on here. What I would ask is if you do have interest again to learn to join our collective and partner with me and Zane and I in our group like this. If it makes sense, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You guys can do it on your own. But I think that what we offer is very valuable. And again, if I could be transparent for a second, I need more eyes on the ground in locations. I am not just like some martyr up here trying to teach people. I want to freaking buy some buildings, and I can only be in so many places at once. And I need partners to be open-minded and open to education so I can teach you how to buy buildings. And that way, when you go find that deal, I will close that deal with you and we'll do it together. If I'm just being straight up and down. So that's kind of my offer at the end. I'll teach you guys exactly how I'm doing all this kind of stuff to where you can be an extension of me in your city. And then when that deal pops, man, we will freaking take it down together and we will never look back. That's kind of our offer at the end of the day. So
Awesome.
sound good, everyone? I appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here. And I hope to see you guys on the other side. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.